Hey gang, your old pal Clay here, Mountain Music Exchange. We were invited to go to the Gibson Custom Shop and hang out there for a little while, spend some time there, chat with the folks that work there, and also go get to tour, take a visit to, it's really more of a self-tour of the Gibson garage. Just a lot of cool stuff to talk about, so sit back, strap in, let's take a second and go to Nashville. So, I'm going to try to do this with a timeline as best I can. I'm going completely off of memory here, so please forgive me if maybe I end up bouncing back and forth or leave out a detail and come back later. Again, I'm just going off of memory. It's been about, as of the filming of this video, it's been about 3 or 4 weeks now, so I'm still kind of on a high for it. It's like a once-in-a-lifetime thing, really, for somebody, I think, to be able to do, at least once in my lifetime. It was just a cool visit. I've always been kind of a nerd for Gibson guitars, custom shop guitars especially. If you've been hanging out on the channel for any amount of time, you'll know that the black Les Paul custom, the Black Beauty Ebony is pretty much my favorite guitar of all time. So I finally got to go to see where those were made. Just a lot of cool stuff. So we go in, and as soon as you go in, it's this wall, right, of fretboards, inlaid, completed rosewood fretboards. There's also sort of like a memorial thing, tribute to Orville Gibson himself on the wall as well. Just a lot of, really, you instantly get like a cool vibe when you go in there. And then there's this sort of lit up Gibson custom logo before you go into the factory itself. You walk into the left, it's the wood library. That's really probably where we spent the most amount of time, was the wood library. If you're not familiar with the Gibson Wood Library, it's this kind of this benchmark place where, they show folks, especially folks like abroad, there's a whole video system that's set up in there where, you get to see sort of the level of top that you might get with a custom order or an order of Gibsons. If you want a special run or a certain specification or something to that effect. And it's crazy because it's just tops on the wall. They're not routed for pickups. They're not, anything like that. It's just tops. They're also just wood planks of, this is a certain level of flame. This is another certain level of flame, that sort of thing. And then right across from that, sort of attached to it with a door and some glass, is a boardroom. What's cool about this is there are slat walls everywhere in the wood library and in this sort of boardroom, meeting room, presentation room, whatever it might be. It's just a ton of cool guitars hanging on that, And they're all, of course, Gibson Custom Shop guitars, so there's not one of them that's not pretty darn cool. Even, your least favorite guitar that might hang on that wall or the other wall is probably somebody's dream guitar, right? So from there, we kind of set up some video stuff, took a little bit of B-roll, and then we went and actually walked through the factory. Now, we didn't get to take like a whole big video tour of the factory, and quite frankly, Gibson TV, if you haven't checked out that channel for whatever, if you're here and you've not checked out Gibson TV, I don't know what's happened, but you should go check out Gibson TV. They do a very, very thorough walkthrough where they talk to a lot of, folks that work there and sort of go into, from start to finish, what constitutes making a Gibson Custom Shop guitar. Now, even though I didn't get a video of that, I did get to experience and see a lot of that, My take on it was that it felt more like a workshop than a factory, if that makes sense. So hear me out. There were machines in there, right? Not a ton. I mean, it's not the constant. When I went in, I didn't hear the constant like whirring of machines and this sort of vibe that you're in this factory that's just trying to mill out as much as possible. I heard a lot of like work, tooling. I heard people talking, stuff like that. It felt more like a place where people are making guitars by hand, and there is some machining that goes into it. I think I even got to get a picture of a machine. I got to see the binding process, which is really crazy, you know, the way they sort of have a specific tie down for everything. But anyway, I got to see that whole process. I got to see, you know, how they laminate the tops. I got to see, you know, blank necks, just one piece necks with just like this sort of paddle on the end that would later become the Gibson headstock. Another thing I found interesting, I don't recall seeing it in any of the other videos I'd seen of the factory tour, but I thought it was pretty cool. The fretboards are actually bound before they ever touch the guitar. I don't know why in my head I thought otherwise, but like the fretboard is bound, pretty much completed, I think, minus, you know, like the pleck process and, you know, finishing touches on the frets themselves. But the neck is, the fretboard is essentially finished before it ever actually gets attached to the guitar. I thought that was pretty neat. And one of the employees walks by, and he's a super cool dude. He's wearing a Munster shirt. You know, I'm a fan of the Munsters, so I call him out and like, hey, cool shirt, man. He tells me that he like actually knows the guy that played Eddie, right, from the Munsters. So, you know, that was a cool conversation to have. And then that same guy reminds our tour guide, show us the stairway to heaven. And that is the coolest set of stairs I've ever seen in my life. I don't even want the inside. Like, if I had a 2-story house, right, I wouldn't even want the inside stairs to have this. I want the outside. I want the steps coming up my porch to be that. I want it to be, you know, a bound, completed custom shop fretboard. I want my door, right, to be the headstock on the outside. I want that on the outside. Like, I'm not ashamed. Where does it go? Heaven, I guess. I didn't go up there. I went to the sort of almost top just to take a picture of the cool, you know, split diamond inlay headstock painting that's up there, or mural, I guess. And then at the bottom, of course, is Slash wearing a Captain Spaulding t-shirt. Of course, playing a Les Paul, because, right. So that was just a cool experience. I'm sure it probably leads to some offices and things or whatever. I'm not sure, but or maybe some upper level where, you know, they pull guitars from conveyor belt, you know, that's there. I don't know, but it was super cool. Stairway to Heaven is the perfect nomenclature for that set of steps. Very nice. And then from there, we came back down after we took a look around in the custom shop. There's some new interesting things going on at Gibson. You're definitely going to want to keep your eyes peeled for sure. And then we go back to the wood library, but we go through a different route, right? So we go through the break room, and they have the coolest break room I've ever seen. I hope that it's cool with the folks that work there. I didn't get any body in the pictures, but I had to get a picture of like it just looks like an old diner or something. Very cool, like booths, tables, and all the seat backs, right, are covered in straps, and they're Gibson straps because, of course, right? It's just a cool vibe. Everything about that place is just a cool vibe. Even the folks that were there at work, right? How many of us have gone to work and we're just like, well, here we're at work again, you know, it's another 9-to-5er, trying to get to the end of the day. Like, no, man, these guys they seemed to be, at least to me at the time, you know, I don't know how every day goes or whatever, but they seemed to be happy to be there. They seemed to be happy to be working on Gibson guitars. They had, you know, the folks that I spoke with had a pretty jovial attitude. No one was like standoffish or, you know, I gotta get to work. You know, everybody was pretty cool, pretty chill. I got to hang out in the paint booth where, you know, they do the specific paint booth that I hung out in for a second and chatted. There was no painting going on at the time, but I think they were about to. It's where they do metallic colors, so that'll be like your gold tops, your Pelham blue, and even like your custom super big flake metal flake guitars, you know. We're done there, I guess, because it's a specific process, especially with the painting of the metallic colors and things. I know there's a different process. They have to keep it from cracking so quick with the nitro. And they told me a little bit about that process. It's pretty interesting, really. It's actually very eye-opening. And as you're walking through, you get to see the conveyor belt going kind of up and down and swooping around. And then you go like the finishing area. The finishing area was really cool. And as you walk through here, there's these different sort of monolithic Gibson structures that are throughout the, you know, entire, like these sort of big giant pieces of art that are Gibson themed art. You know, there's these cool big like monolithic pieces of art that are just literally whole walls of cool sort of three-dimensional or giant murals that are all Gibson, and they're not even Gibson inspired, they're Gibson branded, you know. It's a very cool place to be in general, right? Then we go to the wood library. The wood library is, like I said, where we probably spent most of our time. If you are on the channel now, there is a video up where I hang out in the wood library and spend some time, and that boardroom that I talked about earlier, and spend some time playing the $20,000 Greeny, the Kirk Hammett Greeny custom shop version that's like very specifically aged to look just like, you know, Kirk's current Greeny, right down to the KH on the back. That video is already on the channel. Check that video out. I actually think it's the most expensive guitar I've ever even held in my hands, let alone played and got to demo and review it, you know. So it was just super neat. Our tour guide, who is Director of Operations, Casey Brown, you've probably already seen him in the picture with me at the factory inside the workshop at this point, tells me that Tom's got some time and he'll come in and chat with me for a little bit. So I'm like, Tom? He's like, yeah, Tom Murphy. I'm like, Tom, the Tom Murphy, like the Murphy Lab guy, Tom Murphy, you're telling me. He's like, yeah, man. We actually ended up chatting for about 40 minutes-ish, probably in total. We only got about 10 minutes of that filmed. That video will be up very shortly. But yeah, such a down-to-earth, such a cool dude. He comes in and we just start chatting. This cool feeling like you've known the guy for a while or something, you know, or like your friends meeting back up or something. That's the vibe I got from him, you know. I always like to equate Tom Murphy as being sort of the Carroll Shelby, if you're into cars, right? The Carroll Shelby of guitars. You know, he's super into the process and into the work and the art and what makes the guitar better. And I sort of feel like Carroll Shelby was like maybe the same way. And that's the way he chats with you too. It's just very down to earth, very cool, very chill. They call it a tomversation, by the way. Some of the other folks there I'd heard say that phrase, a tomversation. And then from there, you know, we did the Greeny thing, and that was about the end of that trip. And then from there, we parted ways with Gibson Custom. Then we went down to the Gibson garage, and that is an experience. And that's actually like the third time I've been to the garage. I went back around summer NAMM 2021, I think. It was around the time it opened up pretty much, right? Went down to the Gibson garage. Then we actually shot a thing for it, but it only made it to Facebook, never made it to YouTube. But we went there and just took, you know, as much of our time with the whole place as we could, you know, got some swag, because you're not gonna go to Nashville, go to the Gibson garage and not leave with something, right? They have that cool conveyor belt that runs up top. If you've made it to this channel, you've probably seen several videos with that right now, but you're gonna see another one right now. It was just a cool, everything about that place is, I mean, first of all, if you're a Gibson fanboy, you know, the place is pretty much heaven. Between that and the custom shop, I could just go tomorrow and I would be fine with that. I mean, just Gibson swag everywhere, all over the walls. Custom shop guitars, one-off guitars, the made-to-measure program and the table is there to sort of map out what you want in a guitar, with a lot of cool custom shop guitars on the walls in this very certain section. They have a stage where, you know, during certain times they'll do interviews, maybe performances. I'm not sure. You can tell me in the comments below though, maybe. And then there's a specific area just for like acoustic guitars. That area is sort of climate controlled. They like you to keep the door closed so that they can keep the optimal sort of humidity and temperature to keep those guitars in like tip-top shape. And in that area, there are also like Epiphone guitars, Gibson like Montana guitars from Bozeman. Gibson, you know, like Murphy Lab guitars are in that specific area, acoustics specifically, right? And it's just got its own cool vibe. And the guy working in there, actually, fun fact, he's from sort of the neck of the woods that myself and Haas here are from. So that was a cool chat. We got to kind of chat about being back home a little bit, you know. Checked out the Kramer section. The Kramer section is super, super cool. It's really, really 80s themed, 80s vibe. Really just a lot of hair. It feels like you should just have bigger hair, you know, when you go in there. Or if you come out, you're gonna have bigger hair than when you left. You know, your hair's gonna be teased. But the cool TV wall was awesome. The guitars themselves are always cool. Kramer's always made cool guitars. But now, you know, that Gibson has sort of taken the reins with Kramer. They really brought back a level of quality and cool to Kramer. I think that it's very respectable, and I like what they're doing right now with Kramer guitars a lot. In the Epiphone section, of course, which is really cool. I actually caught just a glimpse of Mark Agnesi on the way, like around it. I think we almost bumped shoulders, but I mean, I didn't want to stop him and try to, you know, a costume for an interview or anything like that. But yeah, it's pretty cool. You could just be in the Gibson garage and see sort of these Gibson sort of celebrity level folks, you know, if you're in this scene, just kind of walking around. But from there, you know, like I said, we grabbed some swag, we left, and that was our trip to Nashville. I will never, ever, ever forget that trip. Special thanks, Casey Brown, Director of Operations at Gibson, for allowing me to invade their space for a little bit. To all the folks that work there, if any of you happen to catch this, I sincerely hope that I wasn't too much of a bother to any of you folks. It was great to meet everybody there. It was a great experience to see everything that I got to see. It was very eye-opening, cool vibe all the way around at Gibson Custom and at the Gibson Garage. If you are in Nashville, you have to check out the Gibson Garage. Go there every day and just hang out. But yeah, the folks there were awesome, very accommodating for somebody who just sort of showed up. It's very cool of those folks to be accommodating for like a guy from a small town store coming in and sort of invading their space for a little bit. So I just really appreciate the friendliness of those folks, the attitude of those folks, and allowing us to come in and move some stuff around in some places and things like that. It was just a great experience to have overall. Very cool folks at Gibson, very cool guitars at Gibson, and I would love to go back again one day. But that's gonna have it on this one, gang. I'm gonna go hang out and play some guitar, and I hope to see you again very soon. MME in Nashville at the Gibson Custom Shop, gang. I'm Clay. You rock. And remember, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, make it loud. See you.